Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Stephen Hour, and yes, we're here back with yet another television series review. And today, we'll be reviewing the television series Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So, this is another show I've always had a huge fun of. Ironically, I've only gotten into it recently, I guess in the past 2 years, I would say. And I've really grown to really enjoy the series and really like it. And without further ado, let's hop into the review. First off, let's get a bit of background info. First off, Buffy the Vampire Slayer was a teen drama with a bit of supernatural vibes. But basically, the show revolves around Buffy Summers, a high school student who turns out that she is a slayer, one of the chosen ones to be this slayer to fight evil, mostly vampires. Hence the title of the show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The show was essentially really was really created by Joss Whedon, and the show ran for 7 seasons. Now, when the 7th season ended, they continued the series off as a comic book series, which, as far as I recall, it still goes on to this day, along with a bunch of spin-offs. But I'm really focusing on the show. The show was also based off a movie that actually appeared early in the 90s, but this was a completely different product when compared to the movie. And basically, it's pretty much, we get a bit of teen drama stuff, we get a bit of action adventure, and Buffy's interaction with, her friends, which are called the Scooby Gang, and basically everyone in her life, both her friends and her enemies, and I really like it because this show really told really compelling stories, and looking at it now, I realize that a lot of Arrow, my favorite show Arrow, a lot of it was heavily influenced by Buffy. Why? Because there's a lot of things that Buffy did. Each season had one main villain. There were interesting storylines that continued into the seasons, and each season had a storyline. Also, it was one of the first few shows to have a female heroine as its real lead, and shows that she takes no bullshit from anyone. She could handle herself. She was really the first, and many things that came after have copied it. So, in many ways, this character helped inspire one of my favorite cartoons as a kid, Kim Possible, which I've done a review of, so if you haven't seen that video, give it a watch. This was really a very revolutionary film, not film, TV show, and aired in the late 90s and early 2000s. And that's it. And it's a really great show. I love the show. Let's get into the cast. The cast for the series included Sarah Michelle Gellar as Buffy Summers, the Vampire Slayer, the main character. Now, Buffy is shown to be a fierce, competent fighter, but not so much on the academic side, and it does show her to be a little bit childish at times. And I also admit, at some moments, she's clearly attracted to more handsome-looking guys rather than normal guys. She clearly has a type, and including type. And I really feel that Sarah absolutely owns this role. When you think of Buffy, it's her interpretation we always think of rather than what we got in the movie. Here in the character of Willow, we have Alison Hannigan, Willow Rosenberg, and if she looks familiar, she really should, as she was on How I Met Your Mother as Lily. Ironic, was her first I guess really big acting role, and it's weird that she started off here when I always think of her from How I Met Your Mother, but here she plays the character completely different in contrast. She's this nerd character, academic smarts, really Buffy's really best friend, and essentially evolves into this witch character later in the seasons, and she gets one of the most interesting character developments as the series went on. Here we have the character of Angel, played by David Borananza. I'm probably butchering that name, and he too should look familiar. He actually, first off, he got his own spin-off show, Angel, but he also is in Bones. And this was his first big acting role that, pretty much launched his career. And he plays Angel as this brooding, almost reserved vampire, and has this sort of split personality, angelic, which is like his evil vampire persona that bursts out every few moments. Here we also have Nicholas Brendan as Alexander Harris, the classic kid, you know, that underclass guy that always get bullied, picked on, but he's shown to be but he's also shown to be, you know, very comedic. He's a really fun character, and many of us, like outsiders, could really sympathize with. There are moments, I will admit, in the show he does do some selfish things, but for me, I can understand why. Also here we have Charisma Carpenter as Cordelia Chase, essentially the Miss Popular girl. And she has a very interesting personality, makes me laugh every time. And she is a veteran member of the Scooby Gang, but she will later go on to join one of the main cast in the spin-off show Angel. And she's fun, absolutely. We see her mostly in the first 3 seasons of this show. Here we also have other great characters in the show. Rupert Giles, played by Anthony Head, essentially Buffy's father figure, and essentially her watcher, like, you know, the ones that trains her and prepares her, but they sort of share more father-daughter relationship, and I absolutely love him for that fact. Here we also have Oz, played by Seth Green, who you should know as voiced Chris Griffin in the Family Guy series, and was really the one that really was the true creator of Robot Chicken. He starts in one of his very first acting roles, and he plays, honestly, Oz as a very great character, and eventually he does become werewolf, and eventually leaves the series during season 4 to pursue other projects. He was really great. And here we have arguably one of my favorite characters in the show, Spike, an evil vampire portrayed by James Masterson. He was introduced in season 2 and introduced in season 2, and he came back in season 3 for 1 episode, but then came back in seasons 4, 5, 6, and 7 as a reoccurring before joining Angel in its final season as billed in one of the main casts. James Masterson always said he loved to play this role, and he is absolutely great here. When we think of him, we think of this role he does. He is this cool, he's really a rebel vampire with a very dark humor, and he's also really fun. Here we also have Dawn Summers, portrayed by Michelle Trachtenberg. I'm probably butchering that name. And she is fun. And I really like her. She's not fun, but I like her. She's basically Dawn. Dawn is basically Buffy's younger sister that we got introduced in season 5 and recurred as a main character throughout the rest of the series. She is often billed as one of the worst characters, not just in the show, but in TV. I don't see her that way. I just view her just a younger sister. And she's not that bad, but I could see why people would probably bill her as being a bad character. But I don't see it that way. Other characters we got introduced to is Anya Jenkins, portrayed by Emma Caulfield, and basically is introduced in season 3, but became really billed as being really part of the main cast in seasons 4, 5, 6, and 7. And she's basically this ex-demon, or vengeance demon, and is a really fun character, and I just love her personality. She's really fun. Here we also have Amber Benson in the role of Terra, and is basically a witch. I like how she's shy and reserved, but becomes more independent and really becomes her own character. She was introduced in season 4 and became really huge character. She was also, and in season 4, she becomes into a lesbian relationship with Willow. And this is odd because Willow was and I found that Willow came out of nowhere, coming out of the closet. I will be honest, but I absolutely love the chemistry these two actresses share, and I have to take it back when I said in the OC of this probably the first proper lesbian couple on TV. I think I have to give it to these two. These two were really the first, and they were absolutely a great pairing, really complement each other, and really worked off really, really well. Other characters include Joyce, Buffy's mother, portrayed by Christine Sutherland. I remember her, I think she appeared in that Meet the Parents films with Robert De Niro and Ben Stiller. She pretty much was a recurring character, but she was fun. Here we have Faith, portrayed by Elisa Dushka. I'm probably butchering that name. And Faith is basically a darker image of Buffy. another Slayer, and very different in contrast to what we got with that character. I really loved it. And here we have another character that's considered hated by most in the fan base. Riley Finn, portrayed by Mark Blucas. And he was introduced in season 4, became a character in season 5, and he was fun. I actually liked him, but I can see why I liked him in season 4. But I think season 5 kind of ruined his character, make us hate him. And I get why people maybe not liked him, because maybe compared to Angel, there was no comparing, and it was clear there was a much better chemistry with Buffy and Spike, and I could get why he was not that liked. I personally didn't mind him, but I will admit, season 5 really made the character into more of a monster and a bad guy, but that's just my opinion. Rounding out the rest of the cast, it's really more people that were really in supporting roles. Here we have Alexis Denisov, probably butchering that name, as Wesley. A sort of another Watcher. He was introduced in season 3, but then he would later join the cast of Angel and became a recurring character. And what I like about him is he got evolutionized in that show. I really liked it. Here we have Harmony, portrayed by Mercedes McNabb, and she was essentially was a best friend to Cordelia, but became a vampire. Was reoccurring in Buffy, but then really joined as a character in Angel in its final season. He was, and I honestly really liked him. We have, of course, Jonathan, portrayed by Danny Strong, and Andrew, portrayed by Tom Link. They're basically these two nerds. They're really, now, Jonathan we've seen in the series before, and Andrew was really more introduced to us in season 6, and they became more associated in that season in character, and both would play a role in season 7. Here we have, one of the principals when the Scooby Gang still went to school, Principal Snyder, portrayed by Armin Shimmerman, and he is a character actually that we all love to despise, and I really like the character for that fact. He's a character we all love to hate. He was fun as hell. I love that. Other characters we got, Robin Wood, portrayed by D.B. Woodside, and basically he was a principal. His character introduced very late into the very last season of the show, and this character should look familiar. This is a Menadil from Lucifer, so this is one of his first, I think, really acting roles, and I was surprised he appeared on the show, but hey, just goes to show just how great some of these characters are. Other characters we got were Jenny, I believe, Jenny Calendar, portrayed by Ruby Scott, was really introduced and was a character really in the first 2 seasons of the show. I really liked her, and she was fun and had great chemistry with the Giles character, and that was just one of the best bits of her character. She was really more of a minor character, and her, I guess I would say fate, because I will reveal more, but let's just say her fate was one of the most shocking and unsurprised and very come out of left field, but it was good it came out of left field, as I was generally shocked and taken back by it. It really came out of nowhere for me. And our last, I guess, character for these good guys, a minor recurring, was Amy Madison. She appeared throughout the series, and surprisingly for a while, at least from season 3 to season 6, as a rat. And basically she was a witch, and she's just another fun character too. I absolutely loved in the show, and when the series ended, I think more of a character is really more explored in the comic series like the rest do, but she was fun. And of course the series gave us a bit of villains, of course. Angelic, the evil version of Angel, was really introduced in season 2. We had the Mayor, portrayed by Harry Groner, as the villain for season 3. Other characters were the Master, A demon we got introduced in Season 2, the evil child. Drusilla, another great character, who really was introduced in the second season and played off really well with Spike when he was evil before he became more of an anti-hero. Drusilla was played by Juliet Landu. Great fun. And another evil vampire. I forget the name, really, but he was fun, and even though I forget the name, he was so fun to be on screen. He was really great. Other characters we got was a musical demon. He was really fun as hell. Warren, the real main villain for Season 6, portrayed by Adam Bushett. We have Caleb, portrayed by Nathan Fillion. Yes, the guy that played Castle. Absolutely great. Glory, a god, basically, portrayed by Claire Grammer. I'm probably butchering some of these actors' names wrong, and I really wish I didn't, but it just comes out that way, I guess. Other characters we get include the character of Adam, as the main villain in Season 4, and essentially the creator of Adam for Season 4. Some of these villains are kind of just there, and I would say not really contributing really anything other than to just be there. Anywho, with all that, I guess, very long cast, let's get into the review. We'll begin this series off with Buffy Summers coming to her new high school in Sunnydale. And here she is essentially meets characters that will become a part of her, that will be essential to the series. She meets Giles for the first time, and I love that interaction in the library and begins to slightly overwhelm her. I also see how she develops her friendship with Xander and Willow, and essentially sets up the premise of the season of her becoming the Slayer, knowing her destiny, and going up against the vampire villain, the Master. If I could be all honest, Season 1 is okay, but it doesn't feel like the Buffy Summers, or the Buffy the Vampire Slayer series that we're known for. And again, that's mostly due, I guess, the series was still trying to find itself. As a result, it kind of goes back and forth between her going up against vampires and other creatures, and even robotic technologies. Season 1 arguably has some of, I'd say, the weakest episodes of the series. But that's, I guess, because as the series went on, it got to be fleshed out a bit more and do more creative freedom, and taking very, very risky avenues of the series, would stand out. Also, this season, I like how they introduce Angel. He's brooding, mysterious, always in the background, and he's slightly, well, we don't really know who he is until we find out he is a vampire. And I also like how it also helps Xander's character. For those of you who don't know, Xander had a crush on Buffy. But as the series went on, his crush kind of went away, but he became very protective. When he found out Angel was a vampire, his first instinct was to convince Buffy maybe slay him. And yeah, so we see that Xander's a little bit shallow, but then again, you could argue nearly every character on this show has at one point showed shallowness. Willow having a crush on Xander is another thing got introduced this season. And I also see that maybe Buffy's a little bit shallow too, as it's clear that she's kind of has a certain type. She's into really the bad boys, or those with supernatural abilities, or those that are kind of popular and good looking. She has a type. I also like how we experience some of the mythology of the Slayer in this season, and it would only be expanded upon as the series went on. Overall, if I could be all frank, Season 1 is, I say, the weakest season, probably because it still hasn't found itself yet, but it still took creative risks, creative freedoms, and I also happen to like the ending episodes to this season, which, and surprisingly, has a bit of ramifications as the series would go on, so, especially for Season 2, which I really liked. I also like how Cordelia was introduced, as everyone hated her, and she was this classic mean girl, but she was shown to be academically smart. Eventually, she sort of became a unofficial member of the Scooby Gang. Season 2, I think, is really where the show fully came into its own, fully comfortable in the mythology, and but still, I admit, still retained a lot of, I guess, creative, I would say, choices from Season 1, such as going up against maybe like monster things that don't really fit well in this universe with vampire mythology and a bit of technology and all that. Some things I felt that wouldn't work. Some things are still carried over in this season. Also, I like how Buffy, we get to explore a bit more about Buffy and Angel's relationship, which I think was a really strong relationship for the first 3 seasons of the show. Also, I like how Willow is slowly developing to become a bit more of a confident character, and of course, her eventually beginning to be in a relationship with Oz. Oz was a really fun addition I liked. Also like how Xander was slowly getting over his feelings for Buffy and was moving on to, eventually some point in the season, moves on and enters a very secret relationship with Cordelia, which I really liked because you think they wouldn't work, but the chemistry between between the actor and actress just works so well for me. Also, I like how Giles is developing being more of a father figure, and we also get introduced to another Slayer, but not Faith. That came in Season 3. We get introduced to another one who's more by the book, and Buffy begins a bit nervous and a bit threatened because she doesn't know that, that she's kind of not fully understand. Well, she knows to fully understand that she's slaying for life. It is her duty. She's chosen, but it's kind of not her choice. It's sort of been made for her. Also, another thing I like is the introduction to Spike and Drusilla. These two crazy couple vampires, they're absolutely fun and still screening, and Spike being arguably one of my favorite bits about the show. Spike is such a fun character, and here we see him at his villainous in the season. Originally, Spike was meant to be just appeared for really 1 episode, but he was so great, it just kept bringing him back. And Spike, and again, from what I've been able to find, this was James Masterson's favorite role. And I don't deny that. We also find a bit more about Angel, about his background, on how he was once evil, but then after doing something horrendous, he is given his soul, or is given a soul, and as a result, he, has to deal with, like, guilt and that, so he transformed from being this sort of mad, evil vampire, sadistic, to being this more brooding, almost kind, and ironically, his brooding really helps with the humor quite a lot. Again, Season 2 is really when the show came into its own, and really went with so many creative choices, such as when they killed off a very interesting character that was introduced, and was set up to be in a relationship with Giles, and the two had such great chemistry. I like how her death came out of nowhere, and it's brutal. Also, really, just as the first season, the Master was the main villain, really in this season, at first, it was set up that Drusilla and Spike would be. And for a moment it was, until Angel became angelic, and it turns out he was lifted from his soul curse when he experienced one true moment of happiness, which is when he and Buffy essentially had sex. And this resulted in Angelic coming out, and we got to see the evil version of Angel. Also, something you need to know, even though the show is great and has some really great fight scenes and choreography, I think really started to be really great in Season 2, I think I want to point out something. In this season, and the seasons go on, sometimes if you look closely, you could see the stunt doubles kind of painfully obvious to some that aren't really, some that can go, not really. Also, I will admit, this season gave me one of my absolute favorite episodes. It's a guilt pleasure episode, and that is, Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered. It's a Cordelia and Xander mini-based episode, and it takes place just after Angel has become angelic. They've been in a secret relationship until they are found out, when Willow finds out and tells the gang, and basically Valentine's Day is rolling around, and Xander, plans to give a gift to, Cordelia. But what ends up happening, because Cordelia was in a secret relationship, and now it's out that she's dating Xander, she dumps him to protect her social rep, but it's a decision she's not fully happy with. And Xander, very heartbroken, upset, wants to get revenge, and goes to Amy and asks to put this love curse, where it plans to be put on Cordelia. Then he will dump her and give her the same pain. Cruel, maybe unfair, But that's the thing, Xander kind of is always in the moment with his emotions or when he's hurt, which makes him kind of human, sometimes shallow, but I can understand even though I don't fully condone it. However, like all TV shows, these spells go wrong. Instead of Cordelia falling under the love spell, every woman does. And it's funny as hell. I'm cracking up as we go along with this. And I love it for the fun of it. Like I said, a lot of creative risks that went in this, including some characters we got introduced to getting killed off, Miss Calendar getting killed off, the Slayer we're introduced to getting killed off. And the season ends with Angel being sucked into this hell demon, Spike, who helps Buffy, to help Drusilla, help, and they end up leaving Sunnydale. And essentially, Buffy, after first revealing her Slayer persona to her mother, she ends up leaving Sunnydale. And interesting, the series would have, if that was that, the series would have ended just after these first 2 seasons. It would have ended there. And the fact that it took such a bold risk to end that season on that type of cliffhanger is something I congratulate it with. And it's bold by their part. Comes Season 3, and for many people, Season 3 is really the best season. In this season, we get to see, first off, we begin the first 2 kind of Buffy getting back to Sunnydale in the first one, and the second trying to re-inaugurate herself back into the Buffy thing. She's trying to refit in. Also, I like how she's more trying to find herself this season, feeling a bit guilt with sending Angel to the underworld. And just when they gave Angel back his soul, at that moment, when he got his soul back, he was sent to the underworld. And Buffy kind of feels a bit guilt about that. Also, this season, we get introduced to some characters we like. First off, the villain, the mayor, arguably played so fantastically well. He's often considered by many to be one of the best villains in the series, and he's absolutely fun. And I absolutely like, how he's portrayed and how the mannerisms he has. He works so well. We also get introduced to some new characters. First off, we get introduced to Faye, essentially a dark mirror version of Buffy. And essentially, at first, she's part of the Scooby Gang. But because of a more darker past, and because she's a mirror version, and because she's darker, she does some things that Buffy would never do. But it's also shown what the difference is between the two. And this will be especially, we'll find a very special 2-parter in Season 4. But I'll explain more when we get to that. But eventually, because she's a more darker character, she eventually ends up working with the mayor as essentially the mayor's main enforcer and henchman. The two develop a sort of great and very fun relationship. Also, Angel makes his way back to the world, and it's revealed that he's been in there for eons, and because of his soul, he's been suffering more guilt and pain more than anything else. Spike makes a return in this episode, which is fun, and his episode really does some things for the series. First off, one of my an interesting storyline that was developed here was Willow and Xander having a sort of slightly secret affair, kind of. Like I said, kind of, because they didn't know, but it gets to the point where it results in Cordelia breaking up with Xander when real Xander kind of cheated on her. And for a moment, Oz broke up with Willow, but the two quickly got back together because he was willing to forgive her. Cordelia wasn't, and sort of steps away from being a member of the Scooby Gang. Also, this is the season where Amy turns into a rat, which is an interesting premise. Which is interesting because she turned into a rat for nearly the majority of the series and wouldn't become into human form until Season 6. What else do we have? We have some really good episodes. One of my favorite was Candyland, where basically there's this magic candy being sold out, and all the adults who have it start acting like teenagers. And it's fun as hell. It's another guilty pleasure episode for me. And the finale here is also a very fun episode too. But before we get to the finale one, I want to talk about another episode, and this is where Anya is introduced as a vengeance demon, and her gimmick was usually going to women who felt like they've been wronged and getting revenge by having the men be sent into a torturous, getting tortured. I understand that and I think it's playing on the concept how, women, hell has no fury than a woman's scorn, which is I guess a little play on that. And basically Cordelia says she wants to go to, a world where Buffy never came to Sunnydale. We found out if Buffy never came, this city will be controlled by the vampires. So it was a nice little episode, but of course everything gets back to where they were. And this is where Xander and Anya begin a little relationship when she loses her demon powers. And she does try to get him back in another episode, Doppelganger, where we get to see one of the two evil versions of Willow. We have a few evil Willow versions in the series. The first one here is a Willow vampire, and she's absolutely fun as hell. And there's a throwaway line she says how she's skanky and I think kind of gay. Ironically, that line would not just be resaid later in the series, but as a little hint to her future. Anyway, we also get also Wesley gets introduced, and he will become part of the Angel spin-off. And he's fun. He's not exactly like Giles, but the character evolves, and the fact he'll evolve into become a badass. But when we first see him, he's more of a weakling, but it's fun as hell. Also, another thing I like is they really explore the idea of Angel and Buffy's relationship. Angel's a vampire. He can't be out in the sun. He has to be in the dark. And he points out that the relationship just won't work. Angel's immortal. Buffy will age. And the mayor points that out. And honestly, I like the mayor character quite a lot. He's funny as hell. And the fact he was name dropped in the previous season, and we get to see him now, is also great. And his big plan was was basically where he transformed into his his proper form, and plans to essentially eat all these high school students, which sadly results in the death of the principal, as we know, that was introduced in season 1 and became a recurring character. And I like how the end is this big show-off with all the Scooby Gang, most of the high school kids, fighting not just the mayor, but all the vampires. And it ends here with, with them victorious. Angel leaving to go to his spin-off show. And we get that shot with them, all them sitting there. And we also get some ramifications with some characters. Harmony end up getting bitten by a vampire, which will be a thing in this later in the series. But another thing I really liked was everything about this season. I say this is its best season. Just as season 2 came into its own, this was firing on all shotguns, but it also ended their high school era, as the next season they would go to college. Also, Faith, what happened to Faith, she would end up in a coma at the end of the season, and her character would kind of get spin off into Angel, but she would have a few episodes in season 4 before she would hit on the Angel show. Anyway, let's hop into season 4. Season 4 is what many people consider with the show dipped in quality. I always thought season 1 started off wonky, but seasons 2 and 3 were building up. And like I said, season 2, they were coming into their own. Season 3 was fantastic. Then we get to season 4. A lot of things have changed. They have to change the dynamics and new characters. Buffy and Willow and Anya were going off to college. And we also find that Xander, is a working guy. He didn't go to college, and he's trying to build a career, and he will for the rest of the series. Also, we see how Giles is going through. Because he's developed to be more of a father figure, as we know, season 3, he's no longer a watcher, kind of stepped down. Buffy renounced her loyalty to the council, which is basically what controls the watchers, and essentially become, an independent slayer. She no longer takes orders from them, and as a result of that, she's on her own, and she's still trying to figure out more of her life now, more than usual. Essentially, it's her becoming, Buffy, her character throughout the series, essentially her becoming an empowering and independent woman, essentially. And honestly, this season took a bit of a dive for me. First off, they introduced the idea of the supernatural and tech, which they've always done in previous seasons, and this one, I admit, I kind of liked, because it introduced a lot of good episodes. Hush, a fantastic episode, where basically everyone loses their voices, and even when they get their voices back, they still can't properly communicate, and I like how that's just such an empowering thing that was. Another one is a two-parter, and it's the classic case where two characters swap bodies, and it's with Faith and Buffy. We get to see just how why Buffy was always better than Faith. She had the Scooby Gang, which was always her shoulder to cry, the shoulder to cry on, or people to empower her when she didn't have the emotions. And Faith never really had that, a group to really back her up. Not really. So that always made her stand out. Also, the villains here are not really some of my favorite. Another thing, however, there are some good things this season. The furthering development between Anya and Xander's relationship, I really love. Spike comes back, and he's more interesting this time around, as he would become more of a main throughout the series. And he's just as fun as ever as he was introduced in Season 2 in that little cameo, well, that one episode, guest spot, I would say, in Season 3. Here, he's just fun as ever. And here he gets something that would actually affect his character throughout the run of the series. He actually ends up getting a chip in his head that makes it him impossible to attack anyone. Unless they're a demon. So he can't harm innocent. And this, I guess, would help further develop his character to becoming a sort of anti-hero in the rest of the season, while still keeping his personality intact, but also showing a lighter side. But I have to talk about the Randy and Buffy relationship that is developed. Like I said, I personally felt Randy was not a bad character introduced in Season 4, but I will not deny his character's rise in Season 5 does not help. But we also sadly see the goodbye to Oz. He will return later down the season for a sort of guest spot. But the Oz and Willow breakup is just painful. Not that it's painful to watch, but painful in like how the actors, are portraying it in a really emotional way. That's what I mean painful. Not painful to watch, painfully emotional. But this also would open the door for Willow to to eventually grow and develop a relationship with Tara. I like how Tara's characterization changes throughout the series, mostly in Season 4. And again, I take it back when I did the Oasis and I thought this couple was the first proper lesbian couple on TV. I think I have to give it to these guys. These were the proper first one. And I just like how the two play off really well and how the relationship really develops kind of naturally. And the two work off so well with each other. Giles here is also is still fun to see, even though I really felt his character never really went in any direction this season, per se. We get a very weird, interesting finale. Well, the villain's plot this season was essentially this. First off, we are shown to the Initiative. Randy is a member of the Initiative, this militia group, underground army, and this rogue scientist was making this sort of project, which is a combination of human and demon, the supernatural. Essentially, that's what these army guys were like. They were going around capturing these guys and imprisoning them, which is very interesting. Very unique. And basically, Adam escapes, and that's the name of the creation the Doctor gave, and now he's planning to essentially go and make this massive prison break, kind of. And basically, all these soldiers and demons that are dead are going to create this army. He's twisted and mad. Like I said, I felt kind of dipped a bit. I didn't mind the idea of trying to bridge the science and technology with the supernatural, but I felt that something just didn't work. Overall, this season kind of dipped in quality, but it introduced some really good episodes, some I really liked. Like, these episodes included where, at one point, Willow, sadly still getting over Oz, ends up have like this magic where what she says come true, such as, I wish Giles would go blind, that Xander become a demon magnet. And my favorite, Buffy, why don't Buffy and Spike get married? Oh my god, I was cracking up all the way to the credits. And I also liked the, this Thanksgiving episode, and it's fun as hell. Again, a lot of good episodes came here, some I really enjoyed, but it did introduce some bad ones, like this, essentially, beer one I didn't get. And also we find out Harmony is a vampire and was dating Spike for a while this season. And kind of does throughout Season 5 until she eventually kind of left the series. Season 5, when Season 4 I felt had a dip in quality, Season 5 brought it back up. First off, we introduced the season with Dracula. And basically finding out Dracula is an actual vampire. I found that was pretty fun as hell, that they would do that to really begin. We also get introduced to Dawn. Buffy's younger sister. To many fans, and basically everyone in TV, they view her as an annoying character. I never found her that. I just viewed her just a little kid. But I felt that the actress portrayed her really well, and she develops quite not a romantic relationship with Spike, but a relationship that Buffy does not approve of. And the fun thing is, Dawn's always saying, well, you dated Angel, and she's always saying, that's different. And again, she's being both overprotective and also / hypocrite. This is also the season where, like I said, Randy's character kind of went for being the jerk, and to the reason why I guess most fans hate the Randy character. Also, Tara develops a bit more to become more of a competent, I shouldn't say competent, but really a more independent and more understanding character. She was kind of why she acted the way she did. We see more of a family and realize that she now really belongs more of not just a member of the Scooby Gang, but is more empowered with the Scooby Gang. I loved every minute of it. Also, Buffy this season goes up against a god. Let me say that. She goes up against a god, Glory. And Dawn is drawn into this, and I like how Dawn's written in, and how she's trying, and she finds out that she's not even real, she was never meant to exist, and I like how Spike is helping her out. Again, they developed this sibling thing. It's clear that Dawn both had a crush on Xander, then Spike. It's fun as hell. I like how it is written well. Also, we like how Giles is trying to move on, and he essentially opens up this magic store. It's fun as always, and and I just liked every minute of it. Also, we sadly get some very tragic moments this season. Buffy's mother sadly dies, and it came out of nowhere, and I like how everyone is trying to process this grieving moment. It really hits me closer to home, not because my mother's died, but I know how it is to lose a family member everyone likes, and everyone grieved, or, was trying to process it each in a different way. So it really kind of reminds me a bit. Also, I like how Spike is really tried to comfort her, because out of all the members of the Scooby Gang, or even in Summer's life, there is really 3 women that he really develops a connection and love to. First off, he really had a good relationship with Dawn, how they two worked off each other really well, and he really did like Buffy's mother, as it's shown that the two kind of developed a sort of really good working relationship, and it's clear that he's falling for Buffy. Buffy's repulsed by it, but it's clear that he's trying to change or show who he is. All the interesting things we get this season is, of course, we actually get to see the full council come, trying to force, essentially still trying to control Buffy, and that speech she has in that episode is really empowering. Michelle, the Buffy actress, just really pulls it off, really empowering. And the cliffhanger ending of this season was so shocking. But there's more episodes that I really liked this season. When Drusilla came back for a little thing, helped really with Spike's character. And also, we get an episode dedicated to Spike's origin. Turns out the mythology that we always thought of Spike, William the Bloody, and how he got the nickname Spike, has been lost in translation and is completely inaccurate. We get to see more of his backstory and see him as a more sympathetic character. I like how when we see him in flashbacks, how he used to be before he was a vampire, is in complete contrast to how he is as a vampire. So I liked that they did that, and James Masterson really does it well, good editing, and really understands more of how the character is. Also this season, again, the cliffhanger was really, and how the end of the season, fantastic. Again, this show was willing to take risks, and they pulled no punches. I like this season. It's a really I felt that seasons 2, 3, and 5 were hitting full strong moments, and season 6 for me was just getting better. Season 6 is really where the show took, I think, its darkest turn in the series. The season begins with essentially the Scooby Gang still trying to essentially show that Buffy is still alive, even though she's dead, using a special robot that was introduced in the previous season. Also, we see how everyone's coping. And I think 3 people who took this the hardest, Spike, because Spike really fell in love with Buffy, Dawn, because older sister, and Giles, because she viewed Buffy as kind of the closest thing to a daughter. So I really felt that those 3 really suffered the most. Also here, we also get the story of Willow being more I would say, drawn into the magic world, which I really liked and really helped with her character. Another thing I also really liked is the villain this time around. So far, Buffy's been up against vampires, demons, a Frankenstein creation, and a god. So how could you top that? Have her go up against a human. Essentially a tech genius, but a bit of a misogynist. And I feel that's an interesting villain for Buffy to go up against. An empowering, independent woman. I felt really works well with that character in how it's written. Also, character developments go with this season. Tara and Willow's relationship begins to deteriorate because Willow's more involved in magic. And again, Willow brought Buffy back from the dead. But it's trying that Willow's getting a bit drawn too much to magic, and it's kind of affecting her in her judgment through this season, resulting in the two breaking up after one of Willow's magic goes too far. Also, Xander and Anya plan to get married, which of course it was done originally. They were in secret about it because of them getting married, but then when Xander realized it was the right time, he went and married her. And I also like how the relationship between Spike and Xander it's being dropped down a bit because maybe he's going to tolerate him and doesn't really hate him as much. Also, I like how, and of course, Buffy does come back from the dead, as always, and ironically it's the second time, but this time she was more proper dead. She was meant to be dead, but she was resurrected. And Giles, happy of course she's back, but she's mad at Willow for doing this. Eventually, and Willow and essentially Buffy is trying to come close with being taken back from the dead and being drawn to Spike. You know, and beginning to fall for Spike. And Spike's always loved her. But she doesn't feel right about it because Spike is technically supposed to be evil. Again, really nice character development here. This leads into one of my favorite episodes. I forget really the title because I really can't pronounce it right. But essentially, it's Willow's magic in order to essentially get over, because essentially what happened after Tara wants Willow and her to be on a break for a bit, she can't handle that or leave the ultimatum, which was essentially to go for a week without magic. She tries to do another shortcut out of it and erase Tara's memory of the event. This backfires and everyone's memories are erased. They get false memories, try to find out who they were. I'm laughing as they are trying to figure out their identity. I'm laughing my head off. But it ends on a tragic, where everyone's get their memory back, everything's normal again, but it ends Tara and Willow's relationship badly. Buffy and Spike, we're seeing them kissing, and Giles leaving because he felt there's no reason for him to be here anymore, and he leaves. We also get a musical episode, and it's one of the best musical episodes ever in television history, and so many catchy songs. Let Me Rest in Peace was always one of my favorites. I have it on a playlist every time I go for a jog or a walk because it's such a good song. And the villains this time around, again, is Warren, who was introduced in the previous season, and we also get Jonathan back, who was a minor character and is working with Warren, and we get introduced to a new character, Andrew, though it's essentially that they've run into him before, but they can't remember, and I guess it's because it's such a minor story, I guess, and it's a fun little joke that they keep poking. These three form the trio, form a trio to become the city's biggest crime lord and essentially are geeks trying to be supervillains. The problem is, Andrew and Jonathan aren't really that type of evil. They more try to poke fun at the hero. But Warren is proper evil and does some pretty cruel and unspeakable things. More cruel than the more monsters we've had in previous seasons. This all culminates into essentially the ending, where we get some really disturbing, honestly heartbreaking things. Xander leaving Anya at the altar after being shown a future version Kang and saying the two shouldn't get married, and it's one of the most heartbreaking moments. We also get where Buffy and Spike's relationship deteriorates, and because he can't really accept it or whatever, he does one of the things I could never fully watch on television. Why? Because it affects me to my core. It's just one of the things that I can't watch because it is so uncomfortable. and that's when Spike attempts to rape Buffy. But he feels so guilty, so not right about it, he leaves Sunnydale to get his soul and essentially to become a better man. We also get a very tragic ending to Willow and Tara's relationship. Just when they get back together, Warren accidentally meant to kill Buffy, kills Tara, and filled with grief and rage, Willow becomes this dark wizard that you're seeing in the picture. And the actress here plays this version so well. And of course, she gets her revenge on Warren, but becomes full dark, and it's up to the gang to try and rescue her and bring her back. It's so fun. It's so great. It's everything about this was pulling all the stops. My one real gripe I could say with the season is more with that rape scene. I wish that was never filmed, and I know that the actor who played Spike really, after this really affected him, and I really feel sorry for him for having to go through, feel sorry for him, even though I've never been through an experience like that, and hopefully in my life I'll never go through an experience like that, but it's just one of the most just uncomfortable things I've ever had to watch in a television show. In Season 7, this is where the series really came to an end. It should be noted that we're kind of expecting a Season 8 after this season, but I really didn't mind how Season 7 ended. I thought it ended on a good note. We begin the season with Buffy kind of training Dawn to be the next, kind of a new Slayer, even though she doesn't have any powers. Xander becoming an architect, and essentially everyone's lives are moved forward, and Giles is really trying to help Willow move on with her life. And beginning of a few episodes is the gang slowly reforming, Willow coming back, and Spike, we find out Spike has a soul, but the soul has left him kind of mentally disturbed. We also here get Anya back, and it turns out she temporarily became a vengeance demon, but then kind of lost that job again. The Scooby Gang was slowly starting to reform themselves this time around. We also get introduced to a new principal, and this is building up to the main villain, the first ever evil being on Earth. And I like how, because of the first ever evil, we get to also see flashbacks or cameos from previous villains. Adam, Drusilla, the Mayor, the Master, Gloria. Basically every big bad we've seen makes a cameo. Also, Andrew develops more and becomes a new member of the Scooby Gang. Sadly, Jonathan dies. I would have preferred Jonathan to become a new member rather than Andrew, but that's just a personal opinion. And Spike's character going through, we also find that Giles is now training a new breed of Slayers here. The council is all gone. They've been wiped out by the evil. And the first real main minion is this priest, played by the man, of course, we know, who played Castle. And he's also in the TV show The Rookie now. Really great. It's really interesting that he's here. And how this ends is so great. This big fight where basically all these potential Slayers get their power, and they're fighting at the end. I also like this episode where Faith come back. She's back to being the good Slayer again. And again, we time jumped a bit with her, we've missed out on her character development, of course, because she went on the Angel spin-off. But what I really like about this is when they want a leader, first they decide Buffy to be the leader, but it's shown Faith, they choose her. And I like how when Spike gets back after a mission, because essentially what they're doing is preparing for this upcoming war. And I like how Spike chews them all out for essentially not going with Buffy. Buffy has sacrificed time and again, and chews them all out. James Masterson here is great in dialogue, and absolutely great here. And the ending is so powerful here. This whole town gets evacuated, gone, for this big fight. Sadly, we lose some of the potential Slayers. We sadly lose some. We lose the beloved Anya, sadly. And it ends with the first getting defeated along with the army. And sadly, also, what was kind of Spike's death, but again, he kind of didn't. He become a build as the main cast in the last season of Angel, which I will probably review that show probably down the line. Probably in what I would do my spin-off series, or spin-offs or sequel series. I'll do that, whether it's movies or TV shows. And it ends here with Sunnydale being destroyed. Powerful scene. I'm wondering where we go next. And the cliffhanger ends there. But what I like about it is it's sort of like Buffy knows that the future is still out there. and she can't wait. And her surviving friends, the future's still out there. The past is over, but the future is still there, and that's what I like about the ending. I kind of spoiled a bit about the ending, but I guess it kind of needed to be said. Really. The ending here is honestly fantastic. Again, this was not meant to be the actual ending, but it is. And I like how it just pulls no punches. We see the deaths of some of our characters that we grew to, but I think we ended on a very hopeful note that the future is still bright. Despite the big battle and the big loss. It was a really fun ending for me, and I kind of like it, even though it ends on a really big cliffhanger. Again, they were meant for a Season 8, but you can still watch Season 8, but in a comic book form. They do a bit of a stop motion thing. They kind of released Season 8 on DVD in the more comic stop motion, but I'm only including really the live action show. Who knows, maybe down the line I'll do that Season 8 thing. Who knows? So, with that said, how do I feel about Buffy? I give Buffy 4.5 stars, mostly because I felt that honestly, seasons 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 were all good. Even great. But I felt that season 1 was wonky and season 4 dipped in quality. I can't give it the full 5 stars. And I also like how this show was breaking boundaries, taking risks, creative risks, and really interpreting really great stories, and would really influence a lot of shows to come. I see why now this show is so beloved and considered a complete classic. With rumors of reboots in the air, I want to know, if we are getting a reboot, where else, what more stories can we have with this beloved teen slayer? There we have it. That was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I hope you enjoyed this review. I certainly have. This is a really interesting show. I admit, this is a show I'm not really that fully knowing with that much of the lore, or even that much of behind the scenes. Why? Because I never grew up on this show. I'll be honest, I got very late into the game watching this show, but I'm now a fan because of it. And I see why a lot of my favorite shows, Arrow and Impossible, they all came from this show. An empowering lead female heroine, and the format essentially of Arrow kind of came from here. Each season having a big bad and storylines that will be intertwined for seasons to come. Very interesting. Very interesting. Anyway, join us next time when we review, or I should say, in the next lineup of television series, we'll be reviewing The Sopranos, one of the greatest TV shows of all time. Stick around, we'll review that show. But until then, this has been the Stephen Hour, and ladies and gentlemen, so long for now.